transport helicopter banked hard over the Afghan mountains as Captain Maya Chen gripped the overhead rail, her knuckles white against the vibration. 24 hours ago, she'd been sitting in a sterile Pentagon briefing room, being told that the next 48 hours would determine whether 12 hostages lived or died. Now, descending through hostile airspace with a team she'd never commanded before, Maya understood that some decisions couldn't be made in briefing rooms. They had to be made in the dark, with lives hanging in the balance, and no second chances. Her earpiece crackled. 2 minutes to drop zone, Captain. Maya glanced at the 5 operators seated across from her. Staff Sergeant Hummus Rodriguez checked his rifle for the 3rd time, his jaw tight with the kind of tension that comes from too many missions gone wrong. Beside him, Corporal Sarah Knowles stared at nothing, her fingers tracing patterns only she could see. A nervous habit Maya had noticed during their abbreviated pre-mission briefing. The others, Specialist Chen, no relation, Sergeant First Class Williams and Private First Class Okonkwo, maintained the disciplined calm of soldiers who'd learned that anxiety was a luxury they couldn't afford. But Maya knew something they didn't, something that made this mission different from every other hostage rescue. In the manual, the hostages they were about to extract weren't civilians. They were CIA operatives who'd been captured while investigating reports of a new terrorist network operating in the region. Standard rescue protocol, standard team composition, standard insertion method. Nothing about this mission was standard. Listen up, Maya said, her voice cutting through the helicopter's roar. When we hit the ground, stick to the plan. Building entry through the west wall. Hostages reported on the 2nd floor. Extraction window is 8 minutes from insertion. Questions? Rodriguez raised his head. Rules of engagement, ma'am. Shoot to kill if threatened. Avoid civilian casualties. Prioritize hostage safety above all else. Above our own safety? Maya met his gaze steadily. That's the job, Sergeant. What she didn't tell them was that intel suggested the terrorist cell holding the hostages had inside information about the rescue attempt, that someone, somewhere in the chain of command, had leaked their insertion time and approach vector, that this entire mission might be a carefully constructed trap. The helicopter flared, hovering 3 feet above the rocky terrain. Go, go, go. Maya dropped into the darkness, her team flowing out behind her with practiced efficiency. They hit the ground running, weapons raised, moving toward the compound that intelligence had identified as the hostage location. The structure loomed against the starlit sky, a 2-story concrete building surrounded by a low wall, exactly as briefed. Too exactly. Maya raised her fist, signaling halt. The team froze, scanning for threats. She keyed her radio. Overwatch, this is Ground 1. Any movement? Negative. Ground 1. Compound appears quiet. Thermal shows multiple signatures. 2nd floor, northeast corner. Consistent with hostage location. Copy that. But something felt wrong. Maya had learned to trust her instincts over the years. And right now every instinct was screaming that they were walking into something they didn't understand. The compound was too quiet, the approach too easy, the intelligence too perfect. She turned to Rodriguez. Take point. Standard breach on my signal. He nodded, moving forward with Knowles covering his right flank. Williams and the others formed up behind Maya, maintaining spacing as they approached the west wall. Everything by the book, everything exactly as trained. That's when the world exploded. The blast came from inside the compound, a massive detonation that shook the ground and lit the night sky orange. Maya felt herself thrown backward, ears ringing, vision blurred. She scrambled to her feet, weapon raised, trying to process what had just happened. The compound's west wall had collapsed inward. Flames poured from the 2nd floor, and the thermal signatures that had indicated hostage locations were now scattered, moving chaotically through the building. Report, Maya shouted into her radio. Everyone report. Rodriguez intact but compromised position. Knowles good to go. Williams' right arm possibly fractured, can still operate. Chen, operational. Okonkwo, static. Then nothing. Maya's stomach dropped. Okonkwo respond. Rodriguez appeared through the smoke. He's down, ma'am. Shrapnel to the leg. He's alive but can't move. The mission parameters had just changed. They were supposed to be conducting a hostage rescue. With 8 minutes, to extract and evade. Now they had a wounded operator, a compromised position, and a building that was actively burning. The hostages, if they were even still alive, would be trapped inside an inferno. Every part of Maya's training said to abort, call for extraction, get her team out alive. The hostages were likely already dead from the blast. Staying would only add more casualties to an already failed mission. But Maya remembered something her first commander had told her during her initial deployment. The book will teach you tactics. Experience will teach you when to ignore the book. And if you're lucky, instinct will teach you the difference. Overwatch Ground 1, we're going in. Negative Ground 1, recommend immediate extraction. Building structural integrity compromised. I said we're going in. Rodriguez Knowles, you're with me. Williams Chen, secure Okonkwo and establish perimeter. Anyone comes through that gate who isn't us, you light them up. Williams hesitated. Ma'am, with respect to the protocol. I know the protocol, Sergeant. And right now, 12 people are dying in there because someone leaked our operation. Those hostages didn't ask to be bait in someone else's trap. We're getting them out. She didn't wait for acknowledgement, moving toward the collapsed wall with Rodriguez and Knowles behind her. The heat was intense, smoke billowing from the interior. Maya pulled her face mask up, switched to thermal imaging, and entered hell. The first floor was chaos, debris everywhere, flames spreading along the walls, the acrid smell of burning plastic and wood. Maya's thermal vision showed shapes moving above, some stationary, others panicked, running without direction. Second floor, northeast corner, Maya said. That's our target. They found the stairs miraculously still intact and began climbing. Each step was calculated risk. The entire structure could collapse at any moment. But Maya kept moving, kept climbing, because stopping meant accepting that 12 people would die because someone in her own chain of command had betrayed them. The second floor hallway was worse than the first. Flames blocked the main corridor, forcing them to navigate through adjacent rooms, breaching walls with their boots and rifle butts, clearing a path through the destruction. Rodriguez moved with machine-like efficiency, his earlier nervousness replaced by focused determination. Knowles covered their rear. Her earlier distraction vanished, replaced by combat-sharpened awareness. They reached the northeast corner to find a heavy door, locked from the outside. Maya could hear voices beyond, panicked, desperate, begging for help in English. Stand back. Rodriguez positioned charges on the hinges, small enough not to compromise the ceiling, but sufficient to breach the door. The explosion was contained, surgical. The door collapsed inward. Inside were 13 people, not 12. 12 CIA operatives, as expected, and one additional person Maya had never been briefed about. Colonel Nathan Cross, Maya's former commanding officer, the man who trained her, mentored her, and recommended her for promotion. The man who was supposed to be in Germany, attending a NATO conference. He looked at Maya with an expression she'd never seen on his face before. Relief, mixed with something else. Guilt, resignation, understanding. Captain Chen, he said quietly, you shouldn't have come. Sir, we need to move. Buildings coming down. Maya, listen to me. This isn't what you think. Rodriguez interrupted. Ma'am, we don't have time for this. Structure's failing. Maya made a decision. Everyone up. We're leaving. Now, the hostages scrambled to their feet, but Colonel Cross remained seated. I can't go with you. That's not your decision, sir. It is. He looked at the other hostages. You need to understand something, Captain. These people aren't CIA operatives. They're witnesses, and I'm the reason they need protection. The world seemed to slow down. Maya's mind raced through implications, connections, realization dawning with horrible clarity. You leaked the mission. I leaked parts of it. Enough to ensure the terrorist cell would respond, but not enough to compromise your actual insertion. I needed them to act, to reveal themselves. These witnesses have information about a broader network, something that goes far beyond this compound, but certain elements within our own intelligence community wanted them silenced. Rodriguez raised his weapon slightly. Sir, are you telling us this entire mission was a way to force multiple players to reveal their positions? Cross finished. The terrorist cell, the intelligence leak, the broader conspiracy. But I underestimated their response. They weren't supposed to detonate the building. They were supposed to defend it, to be captured, to provide evidence. Instead, they chose to eliminate everyone. Maya felt anger building, cold and focused. You used us. You used your own team as bait. I used myself as bait. You were supposed to extract the witnesses and me before anything happened. But the leak went deeper than I anticipated. Someone moved up the timeline. A beam crashed from the ceiling, narrowly missing Knowles. The building groaned around them. We're leaving, Maya said flatly. All of us. And when we get back, you're going to explain everything to people way above my pay grade. But right now, I don't care about your conspiracy or your evidence or your master plan. I care about getting my team and these people out alive. Cross stood slowly. You're right, I'm sorry, Maya. For all of it, the extraction was a nightmare. 15 people moving through a collapsing building. Flames everywhere. Smoke thick enough to choke on even through masks. Maya led. Rodriguez brought up the rear, and Knowles shepherded the witnesses between them. 2 of the hostages were injured, one badly, requiring support from others. They'd made it to the first floor when the ceiling began to fail. Maya saw it happening in slow motion. A support beam cracking, splintering, beginning its fatal descent toward the group, toward Knowles, and 3 of the witnesses directly beneath it. Without thinking, Maya lunged forward, slamming into Knowles and pushing her clear. The witnesses scrambled away, but Maya wasn't fast enough to clear the impact zone herself. The beam caught her across the shoulders, driving her to the ground. Pain exploded through her body, white-hot and overwhelming. She couldn't move her legs, couldn't feel anything below her waist except a terrible numbness that was somehow worse than pain. Captain Rodriguez was there, trying to lift the beam. Cross joined him, both men straining against the weight. Behind them, the witnesses stood frozen, horrified. Leave it, Maya gasped. Get them out. Not happening, ma'am. Rodriguez said through gritted teeth. That's an order, Sergeant. Then court-martial me later, sir, on 3. Together, Rodriguez and Cross lifted the beam just enough for Knowles to pull Maya free. The sensation returning to her legs was agony, but it meant she wasn't paralyzed, wasn't dead, not yet. Can you walk? Cross asked. Maya tried to stand and nearly collapsed. Rodriguez caught her, supporting her weight. I've got you, ma'am. They moved as one organism, a chain of people supporting each other through the inferno. Maya's vision swam with pain, but she kept moving, kept putting one foot in front of the other because her team needed her to, because those witnesses needed her to, because giving up wasn't an option she'd ever learn to accept. They burst through the collapsed west wall into the night air. Williams and Chen were there, establishing defensive positions. Okonkwo sat propped against a rock, tourniquet on his leg, rifle still in his hands. Extraction, Maya managed. 2 minutes out, Williams reported, heard the commotion, called them in early. The helicopters appeared over the ridgeline, fast and low. Combat extraction, no subtlety. They touched down just long enough for everyone to scramble aboard before lifting off, gaining altitude, putting distance between them and the burning compound. Maya sat on the helicopter floor, back against the bulkhead, watching the compound shrink below them. Beside her, Colonel Cross stared at nothing, his face unreadable. Sir, Maya said quietly, just loud enough to be heard over the rotors. When we get back, I'm testifying about all of it. The leak, the conspiracy, what you did, all of it. Cross nodded slowly. I know. I wouldn't expect anything less. That's why I made sure you were the one leading this mission. What? I needed someone who would do the right thing, regardless of consequences. Someone who wouldn't cover up the truth to protect a superior officer or maintain operational security. Someone who understood that integrity matters more than career advancement. He finally looked at her. I trained you to be that kind of officer, Maya. Even if it means you're the one who ends my career. Maybe especially because of that. Maya didn't know what to say. Anger warred with understanding, betrayal with respect. Her mentor had used her, had put her team at risk, had orchestrated a mission that nearly killed everyone involved. But he'd also exposed a conspiracy that went to the highest levels of military intelligence, had potentially saved lives. by forcing the broader network into the open, had trusted her to make the right choices when everything went wrong. "I still don't know if what you did was right," she said finally. "Neither do I," Cross admitted. "But I knew it was necessary." "Sometimes those aren't the same thing." Rodriguez appeared, medical kit in hand. "Ma'am, need to check your back." That beam hit hard. Maya nodded, letting him work around her. The team was settling into the aftermath of combat, checking weapons, treating minor injuries, dealing with adrenaline crash. The witnesses huddled together, speaking in low voices, processing their near-death experience. Knowles approached, her face troubled. "Captain, I wanted to say you saved my life back there. Thank you. You'd have done the same." "I hope so. I hope when my moment comes, I react the way you did." Maya looked at her young corporal, seeing herself 5 years ago. "You will, not because you're brave, but because when the moment comes, you won't think about being brave. You'll just think about the person who needs you." The helicopter carried them through the darkness, toward the forward operating base, where military investigators were already assembling, where Colonel Cross would be taken into custody, pending investigation, where Maya's testimony would either validate his actions or condemn him as a rogue officer who'd endangered his own team. She didn't know which way it would go, didn't know if exposing the conspiracy was worth the methods Cross had used, didn't know if the ends justified the means, or if that question even had a clear answer. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. When given the choice between following orders that felt wrong and doing what she believed was right, she would always choose the latter, even if it cost her career, even if it cost her everything. That's what leadership meant. Not following the book blindly, but knowing when the book was wrong. Not obeying orders without question, but having the courage to question orders that violated your principles. Not surviving at any cost, but understanding that some things, integrity, honor, the lives of those you're sworn to protect, are worth any cost. 3 months later, Maya stood in a different briefing room. This one was larger, filled with senior officers and intelligence officials. The investigation into Colonel Cross's actions had concluded. The conspiracy he'd uncovered had been validated, leading to arrests and reforms throughout military intelligence. The terrorist network had been dismantled. The witnesses he'd protected had testified, their information leading to further operations that saved countless lives. Cross himself had been cleared of criminal charges, but quietly retired from active service. The official report praised his initiative while condemning his methods, a political compromise that satisfied no one, but allowed everyone to move forward. And Maya had been promoted to major, assigned to lead a new unit specializing in complex hostage rescue operations. The kind of missions where the book didn't have answers, where judgment and integrity mattered more than following orders. Major Chen, the general at the head of the table, said, "Your first assignment, 3 American journalists captured by an unknown group in Syria. Intelligence is limited. Political constraints are significant. The hostages have been missing for 72 hours. Standard protocols have failed." He slid a file across the table. "We need someone who knows when to follow the rules and when to break them. Someone who understands that doing the right thing isn't always the same as doing the legal thing. Someone who won't hesitate when the mission goes sideways." Maya opened the file, scanning the details. Another impossible mission. Another situation where every choice was wrong in some way. Another opportunity to prove that leadership meant making the hard calls, not the easy ones. "When do we leave?" she asked. The general smiled. "That's why we chose you, Major. Wheels up in 6 hours." As Maya left the briefing room, file tucked under her arm, she thought about Colonel Cross, about the lesson he'd taught her, not through his words but through his actions, that sometimes the greatest act of loyalty is disloyalty to bad orders, that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit when you're wrong, that sometimes the only way to save lives is to risk everything, including your own career, your own reputation, your own life. She pulled out her phone and sent a brief message to an encrypted number. "Thank you for teaching me that integrity isn't about being right, it's about doing right." The response came seconds later. "Go get them, Maya. And remember, Legends don't need permission. They need courage. Maya smiled, pocketing her phone. She assembled her team. Rodriguez, Knowles, and 3 new operators she'd handpicked. They gathered in the operations center, faces set with determination. "Listen up," Maya said. "We've got 3 hostages, limited intel, and 72 hours lost. The mission is supposed to be impossible. But here's what I've learned. Impossible just means no one's figured it out yet. We're going to figure it out. We're going to bring those people home. And we're going to do it by trusting each other, adapting to whatever we find, and never, ever giving up." "Questions?" Rodriguez raised his hand. "Rules of engagement, ma'am." Maya thought about Cross, about burning buildings and impossible choices, about doing the right thing even when the right thing violated every rule in the book. Do whatever it takes to complete the mission and bring everyone home alive, including ourselves. We don't leave people behind, we don't give up, and we don't let the rulebook get people killed. "Clear, clear, ma'am." As they moved toward the hangar where their transport waited, Maya felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. Not the weight of rank or authority, but the weight of responsibility for the hostages depending on her, for the team trusting her judgment, for the decisions she would have to make when every option was terrible and lives hung in the balance. But she also felt something else, confidence, not in her own infallibility. She would make mistakes, would second-guess decisions, would carry the burden of command for the rest of her career, but confidence that when the moment came, she would make the choice her conscience demanded, would do the right thing, even when it cost her everything, because that's what leadership really meant, not power or authority, or the ability to give orders, but the courage to make impossible decisions, the strength to bear the consequences, the integrity to choose right over easy. Every single time, the helicopter lifted off into the night sky, carrying Maya and her team toward another impossible mission, toward another opportunity to prove that the only truly unforgivable failure is the failure to try. Below them, the lights of the base faded into darkness. Ahead lay hostile territory, unknown dangers, and 3 people who needed rescue. 3 people who didn't know that help was coming, that someone had made the decision to risk everything for them, that someone had chosen courage over protocol, mission over career, doing right over doing what was ordered. Maya Chen wasn't the officer they said she would be. She was something better, something harder, something more dangerous to enemies, and more valuable to allies. She was the commander who wouldn't give up, who wouldn't back down, who understood that real leadership means making decisions that keep you awake at night, but making them anyway, because people are counting on you. And as the helicopter disappeared into the darkness, carrying its precious cargo of hope and determination toward whatever waited ahead, one thing was absolutely certain. The legend had only just begun. If this story moved you, taught you something, or made you think differently about leadership and courage, hit that like button and subscribe, because the stories that matter most aren't the ones that tell us what we want to hear. They're the ones that show us who we could become. And your support helps us bring you more stories like this. Stories about real courage, impossible choices, and the kind of leadership that changes history. Don't just watch, be part of this community. Like, comment with your thoughts and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Because legends aren't born, they're forged in moments exactly like this.